I finally got my lease. ...2020 Freightliner, 110,000 miles on it. Former port service vehicle, so it has high idle time. Had some brand new tires put on it. Other than that, that's about it. Let's take a look inside. Okay, here she is, 2020 Freightliner. Finally got my lease. Yeah, I mean, what's to say, you know, it's a Freightliner, pretty standard stuff. Here's the interior. Haven't moved in yet, I just threw my laundry in here for now. Yeah, 110,000 miles. It was a port truck, so it has some pretty high idle time. And yeah, but there she is. I mean, if you've ever driven a Freightliner or have seen the inside of a truck, it's all pretty much the same. But yeah, interior is pretty solid. Nothing too out of the ordinary for a vehicle that's been used. I didn't see anything terrible before, and I don't see anything terrible now. I mean, the seats are maybe a little dirty. I'm gonna get seat covers for it, but yeah, seats are a little dirty. But that's about it. They gave me a brand new bed. And that's what we're doing. So we're gonna get moved in right now and then hit the road. Let's go. All right, so there's the truck. We are all moved in now and we are ready to roll. For those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. I started this vlog in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. We started as a company driver and now we're moving on to a lease operator. We're currently working for Night Transportation, and that's what this vlog is going to be about. So from this point moving forward, we're going to be operating as a lease operator, and I'm going to show you every paycheck I get as a lease operator, and I'm going to show you expenses, income, maintenance, everything, and I'm going to put it into a spreadsheet and show you as transparently as I can exactly what a lease operator makes working for a mega carrier, specifically Night Transportation. So if this is a subject that interests you, follow the channel. But for this episode, which is episode 31, I'm going to show you my first week as a lease operator. I'm going to show you what loads I took, how much I made, what my expenses were, everything. But the first thing I did when I got my truck is I actually took it home. So I picked it up in Phoenix, Arizona, and then I had some family in the Tucson area. So I drove it to Tucson and then looked at it for a little bit and found a few issues with it. The Zonar wasn't working properly, but then it started working properly, so I just let it go for now. It wasn't properly recording my location, but then it started recording it, so I didn't do anything about it for the moment. And also my seat was not going up and down, so I couldn't do this. It just wasn't working properly. It would go up, but then after about a couple minutes, I'd be riding on the floor again. And also my inverter wasn't working. So after taking it home, I then drove it right back and took it to the Phoenix yard. They worked on it, and within an hour, they had it fixed again. So the inverter's working, my seat air ride is working, and the Zonar is working as well. So we're good to go. And after that, the first load I got was from Phoenix, Arizona to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Let's go. Okay, so I dropped the load in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Then I got dispatched on another one going from Prewitt, New Mexico to Valparaiso, Indiana. Let's go. Okay, so after the Valparaiso load, we got dispatched on another one, picking up at the drop yard in Joliet, Illinois, and dropping in Plainfield, Indiana. So we did that one, it was fairly short, and then we grabbed another one going from the Indiana yard to Edgerton, Kansas. Let's go. right, so after the Edgerton load, we got dispatched on another one picking up in Edgerton, actually at the exact same shipper. So we're just dropping a load and then we're picking one up at the same place. And we're going to Greeley, Colorado. However, we're going to relay it in the Colorado night transportation yard. Let's do it. All right, so after we dropped the load in the Denver yard, we got dispatched on another one going from Golden, Colorado to Mesa, Arizona. So I'm headed back to the yard. Truck has a couple of issues. So I mentioned the Zonar originally was, it wasn't working, it wasn't recording my GPS properly, and then it started working, and well, now it's starting to malfunction again. So it's not recording my GPS like the way it should. It's just not docking and doing a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to have that worked on. And also, I'm noticing that my fifth wheel lock, the lock that goes on there around the kingpin, it seems like there might be a little bit of wiggle room in there that there shouldn't be. So I'm going to have them take a look at that and get that fixed as well. And then the air seat still has a slight leak in it, so my air cushion is still leaking. It doesn't fall to the floor like it was, so it's not bad, but I hear it leaking a little bit. And yeah, so we're going to go back to the night transportation yard and get that fixed. So we're headed to Mesa, Arizona right now, which is basically Phoenix. So let's go. 3 years of company driving and I never damaged a vehicle. 1 week as a lease operator. And I cracked my headlight. I'm not proud of that. Yeah, so I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the Flying J there, and I was trying to put it into a particularly tight spot where there was like a lamppost in front of me. And there were other spots available, but I had already shot at this one, and I just got stubborn and just kept going at it. And it was a little dark outside, I was a little tired, and I was probably used to driving a Volvo. And while I did a pull forward to try to, readjust, I just hit the gas too much and popped the headlight. So that's awesome. I never hit anything before, and first week as a lease operator, I popped my headlight. The light still works, it's just the plastic frame around it, so... Well, whoops. That's embarrassing. But, yeah, did that. And, yeah, looks like we're going to have to get that fixed. Nice. Luckily, we're headed to the yard anyway, so while they're fixing the Zonar and the fifth wheel issue, they can fix that as well, but that's embarrassing. Either way, though, that Phoenix load is going to be the last load, so let's go ahead and get into the spreadsheet right now. Okay, it's spreadsheet time. All right, here it is, the lease spreadsheet. For this week, obviously, we're going to cover week 1. However, it's going to be week 1 plus a load, so this Buckeye to Albuquerque load was actually on last week's paycheck. But obviously, I'm not going to make an entire week just for one 400-mile load, as that would skew everything. So I just tacked it on to this week's paycheck. Okay, so just a quick overview of the spreadsheet. Again, I just made this from scratch, so we're just going to go over everything. So a few categories. We got total revenue here, which you can already see. And then we got total revenue of reimbursements. So this is a total revenue for loads, and this is a total revenue for reimbursements. And reimbursements might be something like I bought some straps for a load that I was dropping, and then I, dropped the load at a shipper and the straps went with it. It would be stuff like that because I would have to go buy the straps myself. So it would be stuff like that. But this week I didn't have any. And then we're going to go over fuel expenses, maintenance, other expenses, and then things like deductibles and escrow accounts. That would include things like deposits as well. And then after we do that, we're going to go over total expenses, total revenue, and an overall net profit at the very end. Right here, I got a couple columns hidden along with these columns or rows, whatever, right here. Can't let you have that much fun. But for right now, there's a couple columns hidden right here. So these are just the pickup and delivery date along with the load number. So on my pay stub, I'm able to just basically copy and paste all of this straight into the spreadsheet. So I'm lazy, so that's exactly what I'm doing. But I have these hidden right here because, well, they're just not very relevant, and it just makes it, squish in a little bit better. So there's a couple hidden columns there, nothing too important, but just so you know. All right, so for week one, we did 5 loads. So how it's broken down is you have total loaded miles, and then below that you have empty miles. Empty miles is 81 cents per mile, flat. That does not have any fuel surcharge on it. You just get 81 cents per mile flat. And then the actual load has the mileage and then the fuel surcharge. So as a reminder, the fuel surcharge is what shippers pay carriers in order to haul their freight to account for fluctuating fuel costs. So this will change every single week. So as you can see right here, that was actually last week. That was actually last week. The Buckeye load was on last week's paycheck, and last week's fuel surcharge was 65 cents per mile. And then this week, all of these rest of these loads were this paycheck, and the fuel surcharge was 63 cents per mile. So that's going to change every week. It changes with the price of fuel. So that's going to change, every week. So just expect that. For this week, though, it was 63, and last week it was 65 cents per mile. Then the loaded miles, they also vary. So I have the just a snippet picture here of what the loads pay. So you got night refrigerated, night transportation, night port and rail services, and then there's all the pay charts for all of them. We're doing night transportation dry van. So in this case, you can see the numbers right there. 1 to 275 miles pays $1.51 per mile. 276 to 550 miles, $1.28. 551 miles and up pays $1.16. And then you can see the various pays I got for all of these loads. So this right here is the total cents per mile I got paid. This is just these two numbers added up. And just a note, on my pay stub, it actually only shows this. So I have to break it down over here. So if you were wondering, when you get your first paycheck, if you choose to lease, you're just going to see the big number right here, and then the loaded miles right here. It actually doesn't break it down like this for you, but I did that just to show how much the fuel surcharge was, and then how much I was getting paid per mile. You're also going to notice this drop right here. So that's not revenue, but it's on the pay stub. It's in revenue, so I put it in here. I might change that later, but for right now, I just left it there for now because it shows up on my pay stub, even though it's a charge. So whenever you as an owner operator or a lease operator drop a load at a terminal, you get charged $60. And the reason for that is it's obviously really in an owner operator or lease operator's best interest to just keep running. So if you have a load that it's going to take like 5 or 6 hours, you very much just want to drop that at a terminal and let a local driver take care of it. But obviously that causes a lot of work for local drivers, and that's not good for night transportation. So you can drop those types of loads, but they're going to charge you $60. And in this case, I dropped this this Edgerton the Aurora, Colorado load at the night transportation terminal in Aurora, Colorado. So they charged me $60. Now it can be waived. So if you have like a really short load that needs to be picked up and dropped and then dropped off like a couple days later, it can be waived. And in that instance where you just have like a really short load, it almost certainly would be. So just a note there. As a lease operator or an owner operator, you get charged when you drop a load. And in this case, I got charged for this load right here. So we did 5 loads this week, and actually the Mesa, Arizona load did not make this paycheck. I thought it was going to, but it didn't. So that load is not on this paycheck. But moving forward, we did 5 loads, and in those 5 loads, we got 3,347 miles, and we were paid an average of $1.77 per mile. That does include empty miles and loaded miles, along with the fuel surcharge. And we were paid a total of $5,926.93 for week 1 plus the Buckeye load. We did not have any reimbursements, and that's a revenue right there. So just shy of $6,000 for the first week. All right, so moving on to expenses. So fuel expense. Unhide it here. So fuel expense, so we fueled up 5 times, and in those 5 times it cost us $1,328 for an average of 40 cents per mile. Now that is extremely low, and that is extremely low because this truck actually came with about a half a tank of fuel. So that's around $400 or $500 worth of fuel that I did not have to pay. So just a note there, this is pretty low, and it should be $400 or $500 more. So if I were to actually add, let's say $500 to this, just round up to $1,800, it would go up to about 54 cents per mile. Now I still beat my fuel surcharge by quite a bit, and that's good. But just a note there, this is very low because my truck actually came with half a tank. And if you're wondering, that is not common. All of the other leasable vehicles I inspected had basically absolutely no fuel whatsoever. And they had such little fuel, I was actually worried about even driving it around the lot because I was worried it might actually run out of fuel as I drove it around the lot. This one just had a half a tank, which good, but yeah. So that's why that's so low, and that's 40 cents per mile is not going to be common. It's going to be a lot more than that, but just a note there. Ignore this for now. That'll make sense here in a second. Okay, moving on to maintenance. So this week I only had one maintenance fee that made the paycheck. So I had new drive tires put on the vehicle. The ones that were originally on here weren't great, so we replaced them, and that cost me $1,988. The other maintenance issues I'm dealing with right now aren't on this paycheck, and the only maintenance issue that I should get charged for actually is the headlight, which was 100% my fault, but everything else should be covered under the MRP. So as a reminder, the first 15 days you pick up the vehicle. If you find an issue with it, which I found an issue with this one, you can bring it back and you can have them fix it free of charge. Now these drive tires right here, they weren't necessarily an issue. I just had them put on new tires anyway because I was going to need them eventually. But if you find another issue, they'll fix it free of charge. The light obviously was completely my fault though, so I'm going to have to pay for that. I haven't got the bill yet, but that wasn't on there. But anyways, so I did have new drive tires put on it, and that's a big bill right there. That's $2,000, and in this instance 59 cents per mile off of 3,347 miles. So that's a lot, and that's not going to be a common charge. My maintenance expense, I sincerely hope, is not 59 cents per mile, but this will skew this week's overall paycheck, and just a note there. Moving on to other expenses, so that's what that is right there. It matches up with all this. So this picture right here is from the lease packet that you get sent, and it just breaks down all the pay you see right here, and I thought it would be handy to have it next to this week's paycheck, so it kind of breaks down everything that I'm about to explain. So first off, truck payment. Truck payment doesn't start till week 5, so as of this moment, no truck payment, which, while this skewed it to the negative, these new tires skewed it to the negative. Caveat to that is there's no truck payment, but the truck payment is only $450, so this is still pretty badly skewing it in the wrong direction. Just a note there. MRP, so they charge you 5 cents per mile to use their terminals, to use their maintenance facilities and stuff like that. Basically just a 5 cent per mile charge, and that's what you got to pay. So 5 cents per mile times 3,347 miles equals $167. That's where that comes from. Qualcomm, $13. Bobtail insurance, $6.92. Physical damage insurance, $69.23. And the physical damage insurance, you can see it right there. It's 4% of the tractor value. My tractor value was $60,000, so I think that math makes sense there, or something like that. But you can see it right there, and again, all of this is right over here. Occupational accident policy, $34.62. Permits, so you pay for your permits, they're $42.30, 31 cents, and the pre-pass is $3.50. Total expenses equal $336.93 for 10 cents per mile. Now this should actually stay relatively stable, so it should be, I would guess between $336 plus the truck payment, which is going to be $450, so about $800 per week would be my guess. And that should stay, all of this should stay relatively stable at about $800 per week once the truck payment starts. So just a note there that this stuff shouldn't move too much. Moving on to deductibles and escrow accounts. Fuel and mile tax, also known as IFTA, is 3 cents per mile. 3 cents times 3,347 miles equals $100.41. There you go. Maintenance fund. So this is just a savings account. It's electable, so you can change it to 7 or 3. I think you could even not have it, but yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I chose to save 5 cents per mile for any maintenance issues I might run into. So 5 cents per mile times 3,347 miles equals $167.35, which is actually the same amount here. So yeah, and that's just a savings account. You can withdraw it for whatever reason, actually. So if Christmas is coming up and you need a little extra cash and you got like $5,000 in your MRP, you can actually withdraw like $1,000, $2,000 from your MRP and use it for Christmas or whatever. Just a note there, that's just a savings account. And yeah, just a note there. So Qualcomm deposit. So the Qualcomm deposit is $300 for this week, and I think that's a one-time fee. So while I didn't have a truck payment this week, I had this Qualcomm deposit, which almost counts for the $450 truck payment that I would have. So yeah, there's quite a few caveats here. You got the drive tires, you have no truck payment, but then you have the Qualcomm fee. So just a note there, there's caveats on caveats on caveats in this one. So security deposit. Security deposit is $50 per week, but I think after week 5, it'll go up to $100 per week. And yeah, so these deposits, by the way, assuming you don't leave the truck a complete mess or you don't break your Qualcomm or whatever, I should actually be getting these back. So these are just deposits. And this maintenance fund right here is mine. So I'm counting these as expenses, but they're more like savings accounts / deposits. But for simplicity's sake, I'm counting these as expenses. But, you know, at the end of this whole leasing adventure, I should get all of that back. But for now, we're just going to count cash flow, and we're just going to count them as an expense. So total deductibles and escrow accounts, $617.76, which brings us to 18 cents per mile. All right, so now the moment you've probably all been waiting for. So total expenses. My total expenses were $4,271.21 for an average of $1.28 per mile. Total revenue was $5,926.93 for an average of $1.77 per mile. So that brings our overall profit to $1,655 for an average of 49 cents per mile. Now, this is a 1 week sample size, and in this 1 week, we had a $2,000 expense, which is not common. We did not have a truck payment, which was $450, but we also had a Qualcomm deposit, which was $300. So there's some caveats here, you know. And if we wanted to play around, and let's say we delete the Qualcomm deposit, and then we put a $450 truck payment, and then let's just lower this to, I don't know, $200, because maybe something like that. Actually, we'll go $400. That's 12 cents per mile. Pretty common. So if we did all that in a hypothetical situation, obviously, you know, we're making a lot more, about double that. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to make that. I'm just playing around here and just showing you some of the caveats that are going on here with the drive tires being so expensive and no truck payment, but having a Qualcomm deposit. You can kind of see some different scenarios here, but we don't have those scenarios. So right now, first week, $1,655 at 49 cents per mile. And that is the first week as a lease operator. Small sample size, so I would expect that to go up going forward, but we'll see. And all of these numbers, by the way, are gross pay. Okay, yeah, so that was week 1 of lease operating. We are currently in Phoenix, Arizona, so we're at the terminal and we're in maintenance. So I mentioned that I was having a little issues with the fifth wheel and the locking jaw, and there seemed to be a little bit of room in between the kingpin. Well, there most certainly was some room, and there was an issue. So I brought it in yesterday. They took off the fifth wheel, and it turns out they're saying, and it does look like the fifth wheel is bent. So straight up, the fifth wheel is bent, and they couldn't get the locking jaw out. So they were trying to pry it out. It should slide right out, but they were trying to pry it out with pry bars, and it wouldn't come out. And they finally concluded, yeah, it's bent. So I have to get a new fifth wheel. So the fifth wheel has been ordered. I don't know when it's going to be here, but looks like we are going to get a new fifth wheel. That should be covered under MRP. I would hope, because that's expensive, but that should be covered. They're also still working on the Zonar, so my Zonar still not logging GPS correctly. So they're working on that. And then as they were working on the Zonar, they had an electrical code come up. So they're working on that as well. Odds are, while they were trying to fix the Zonar and working with the wiring, they did a little something. And now there's an electrical code up, so they're going to work on it today. They haven't started on it yet, so I'm currently filming this, trying to fit it in. But they're working on that as well. So the fifth wheel is probably going to take a few days anyway. So right now we're sitting, waiting for that to come in, and they're going to work on the Zonar while they wait. Now they did offer me a loaner, so I could take a loaner out, and I might do that, but I'm going to wait probably a day or two and see maybe if if the fifth wheel is ready to go. Maybe Freightliner could just bring one over today, hopefully, maybe. So I'm waiting it out. I've never had too much luck with loaners. They tend to be complete junkards and not really worth your time, and I would actually probably prefer just to take time off than to take a loaner out, but we'll see. It depends when the fifth wheel is going to come in. So, but I might take a loaner out, and they did offer me a loaner. Now, obviously being in maintenance, that will affect next week, so we'll see how that goes. We did have the Aurora, Colorado load to Mesa, Arizona, so that one will be on next week's paycheck, and then hopefully this can get resolved in a couple of days, and then we can get a few more loads for next week's paycheck as well. But that will do it for this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you are interested in this spreadsheet or any of the other spreadsheets I've done in the past, they are available in the About section. And if you are interested in truck driving, there is a link in the comment section. It's the first pinned comment. Just click that link, fill out your information, and a driver recruiter will get a hold of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.